Did you hear Donald Trump getting ready to call for a national housing emergency? What does that even mean? I think it means he is going to have the U.S. Treasury loan money to American citizens for 0%. I think he may even put a hold on property taxes, if not eliminate them completely. Who knows what else he's going to do? But what does he want? He wants lower prices, more affordability, lower interest rate for everyone, all the time, everywhere, as long as you're an American citizen. Better buckle up your seatbelts, because here we go. Let's go.
Houses that cost 3 times your salary in the 80s now cost 14 times your income. That's not inflation. That's a system redesign. Welcome to 2025, where working harder doesn't mean owning more. It means renting longer. Where van life gets sold as freedom, but it's really just survival with better lighting. Where people celebrate housing crashes while others panic about equity they knew was fake anyway. The math broke somewhere along the way, and we're all pretending it's normal. It's not. This is Mina Mind Mirror. Let's break it down.
Hey, what's up, America? We're getting word in the next couple of months that the housing market might finally collapse worse than 2008. Now, economists are warning that housing prices might fall 50% in some areas. And that could just be disastrous for the United States. Yes, that's correct. Top economists are warning that housing prices can drop 50% to prices that people could actually afford. So yes, we've all been bitching and complaining about housing prices being 30 to 50% overinflated, meaning that the younger generations will never have a chance to buy a house. And now that the market's about to collapse here in the next couple of months, people are bitching about it. The fuck is wrong with you? This is the greatest news I can think of. Houses that were artificially inflated on price are now going to settle back down to normal levels. And now people are going to start bitching that they're going to lose fake equity in their home from overinflated values. And people are going to start bitching that the younger generation will actually be able to afford a home if these values on homes drop 30 to 50%. So you see, you can't have it both ways.
Wait, so you want your house value to stay inflated and want your kids to afford homes? Pick one. That equity sitting in your house? It's paper. When homes double in 7 years, but wages go up 20%, that's not wealth, that's speculation. And deep down, everyone knows it. Here's what's real. A correction isn't a disaster for everyone. For millennials priced out for a decade, it's literally the only entry point. Yes, some homeowners lose equity, but the alternative is locking out entire generations permanently. Generational wealth means thinking past your own Zillow estimate. If you actually care about your kids' future, maybe root for affordability over artificial gains.
You can't have houses that cost $500,000 on average and yet still have the younger generations purchase homes, because they'll never be able to afford that kind of house price ever. At the same time, those of you out there that have houses that doubled in value in the last 7 years, you knew that was fake. You knew it was artificial. You knew that was made up just from market speculation. And now that housing prices are going to start to drop coming up here, you have the nerve to bitch about the value of your house going down, even though you knew it was artificially inflated in the first place. You didn't mind because you could sell your house for triple what you bought it. So of course you were fine with that. But you have to understand, it's more important that the next generations are able to purchase homes. That's more important than a false overinflated house value. I know you don't think so, because you might be set to lose a little bit of equity, right? But would you rather take the artificially inflated value and run? Or would you rather your kids and grandkids actually be able to have a house and the same American dream that you got?
When someone tells you, if you just work hard enough, you can still buy a house, show them this. Stat number 1, only 14% of median income households can afford to buy a home. 3 years ago, it was 43%. That means the 7 out of 10 households who could have bought in 2021 are now locked out. Not because they got lazier, but because the game has changed. Stat number 2, it now takes 11 years to save 20% deposit. That's 11 years of perfect execution. No emergencies, no life, just grinding. And praying that prices don't move even further away. Stat number 3, over the last decade, house prices have rose 104% while wages only grew 56%. That means you're earning more than ever, yes, but still falling further behind. The finish line is moving faster than you can run. Stat number 4, the median home costs 8.2 times the median income. In Sydney, it's 14.7 times. Your parents bought at 3 to 4 times their income. You need 15 years of your entire salary before tax, before eating, before living. This isn't a housing crisis. It's wealth redistribution. They just don't call it that.
There it is. Wealth redistribution disguised as market dynamics. 11 years to save a down payment while prices rise faster than income isn't a market inefficiency. It's a feature. The game is rigged so ownership concentrates upward while everyone else rents forever. Your parents bought homes at 3 to 4 times their income. Now it's 8, 12, 14 times. That gap isn't explained by supply and demand alone. It's policy choices, zoning laws, and financial engineering that favors existing owners over new buyers. Practical reality: if you're trying to buy, the old playbook is dead. Look at emerging markets, consider fixer-uppers, or honestly just wait. Don't let boomers who bought in 1985 tell you to just save more. Their economy doesn't exist anymore.
This graph tells you everything about how messed up the U.S. housing market is today. It compares the cost to buy a house versus the cost to rent. And what you can see is that the cost to buy is over $700 more expensive per month than the cost to rent. This is near the biggest differential in buying versus renting that we've ever seen, even bigger than the 2006-2007 bubble before the last crash. But this is especially problematic in certain states, everyone. If you look at this map on RevenTrap, you can see the buy versus rent differential is biggest on the west coast of the US, where it costs as much as 2 times more a month to buy a house than to rent a house in states like Colorado, Utah, Nevada, California, Oregon, and Washington. Not so coincidentally, these are states where home buyer demand has gone down by the most over the last year. The question is, will prices drop by more in these areas where the cost to buy is way higher than the cost to rent? The idea is eventually the cost to buy has got to come down to the cost to rent to have an equilibrium in the market. Head to www.reventure.app, find out, and access that price forecast and the buy versus rent differential for your city and zip code under a premium plan.
When buying costs $700 more monthly than renting, the market is literally screaming, "Don't buy." That buy-to-rent ratio matters more than people think. West Coast markets where buying costs double what renting does, those are flashing red warning lights. Buyer demand is collapsing there for a reason. Renting isn't failure when buying would bankrupt you. Stack cash, stay liquid, wait for equilibrium. The people who bought at the 2007 peak spent a decade underwater. Learn from them.
You just don't want to admit it, but van life equals housing crisis. This isn't a vibe, and this is not freedom. This is what happens when housing collapses and survival becomes illegal. Millions of us are being pushed to live into vehicles just to survive. And cities are treating us like shit. And for most of us, van life is the last resort. And we're being hunted for it. Welcome to part 7 of a series of why I don't think van life is going to last for the next 5 to 10 years.
This is the part no one wants to say out loud, that van life is the new face of homelessness. And I'm not talking about the kind you ignore on the freeway ramp. I'm talking about the kind you envy on Instagram without even realize that most of us are barely hanging on.
Rent is unattainable, wages are stagnant, and the price of just living, even simply, has skyrocketed. Most people aren't choosing this life because it's cute. They're choosing it because they don't have an alternative. But instead of compassion, we get harassment. And instead of services, we get surveillance. And we certainly don't get safety, we get ticketed or towed or jailed for sleeping in our own property. I've said it before and I'll say it again, that city ordinances are being put into place to criminalize living in your vehicle. Even if your van is insured, even if it's spotless, self-contained, all that, doesn't matter. They don't want to see you because you are their failure, made entirely too visible. And the few who do glamorize it, they're helping the cities crack down on us because we're not the right kind of van life for them. If we're not brand safe, we're broke. And they want us gone. So even with all the bougie Sprinter vans, van life isn't a trend. It is the front line of America's housing disaster. And if you're not scared yet, you're not paying attention. You can go watch the full story here, or you can join the conversation here. If you go there, I'm warning you right now, you're going to have to use your thinker. And you can just follow me here if you don't want to be silent. Just leave a comment.
Van life isn't a vibe. It's homelessness with an Instagram account. When working full-time means living in a vehicle, that's not a lifestyle choice. That's economic failure. And cities criminalizing it? That's just hiding the evidence. People are getting ticketed for sleeping in vehicles they own, while zoning laws prevent affordable housing from being built. Foreign investors sit on empty properties. Workers live in parking lots. If you're in this situation, know your rights. Join real van life communities that share safe spots and legal resources. And everyone else? Stop romanticizing poverty. When someone says they live in a van, don't assume freedom. Assume necessity.
Okay, so I live in northern Utah. I live just north of Salt Lake City. And Realtor.com just posted a graphic on TikTok that the U.S. News World Report voted that Utah was the #1 place to live based on a lot of categories. Healthcare, education, lots of things. I don't necessarily disagree that it got voted for that. Like, there's lots of reasons that I like living here and lots of reasons I don't like living here. Lots of reasons why I would never raise a family here based on my personal political beliefs. However, what Realtor.com decided to post with that information was the average income and the average house price. So in Utah, voted the #1 place to live, the average income is $48,000. That unfortunately sounds about right based on all of my information. I work in HR, so I actually know a lot about income and wages here in Utah. But the average home cost is $595,000, so $600,000. So to put that into perspective, my husband and I have good jobs. We're very lucky for that in Utah. I was unemployed for 13 months a couple years ago, and we're really lucky to have the jobs we have. So my husband and I make 4.3 times the average income. So statistically, we're doing pretty well for most people in Utah. However, let's say that I wanted to go buy an average cost home. For me to have 20% down, I would have to have $120,000 in cash. That would mean that I would have to save every bit of my take home for probably 2.5 years, meaning we would have to live entirely off of my husband's take home, or vice versa, honestly. So for probably upward of 3 years, my husband and I would essentially have to not touch one of our paychecks to have enough money to put down on a house. That still means that my mortgage would be somewhere around $4,000 after property tax and potentially HOA, and lots of other things in Utah. So yeah, I can't afford that. I can't afford to not touch my income for 3 years and then go live somewhere that's gonna cost me $4,000 a month. I could afford it, but I wouldn't have any food to put on the table. I wouldn't be able to go travel. I wouldn't be able to buy a car. I would just have to sit at my house all day because I couldn't afford to go do anything else. So let's say that I don't have a down payment and I don't have anything to put down. So we could use our VA, first time home buyer's loan. I would still have an almost $6,000 house payment every month for 30 years. That is 75% of our take home, if not more. That's crazy. Realtor.com decided to post that and really is exposing the wealth gap disparity and the housing crisis in Utah, because lots of people can't afford homes. People like me, who my husband and I have a job that allows us to make 4.3 times the average income, can't afford to buy a home. And the homes we can't afford to buy, we would have to put hundreds of thousands of dollars worth into work to make it livable. But yeah, tell me why Utah's the #1 place to live. Using those numbers, that's what you chose? Come on.
She makes 4.3 times the average income and still can't afford a house without sacrificing literally everything else. Let that sink in. Average Utah income, $48K. Average home, $595K. That's 12.4 times income. Not affordable. Not sustainable. Mathematically insane. Stop chasing best places to live rankings that ignore actual affordability. Calculate the income to home price ratio before you move. Above 5 times, you're setting yourself up for failure. Consider remote work in lower cost areas. Geographic arbitrage beats fighting impossible math in trendy cities.
I've shared on Reddit that in her final days, I'm going feral by opening a bunch of credit cards and buying whatever she wants. This young woman has really through it. 2 years of cancer treatment, lost a limb, fought like hell, only to be told that the cancer had come back and there's nothing more they can do, and she has months, if not weeks, to live. So she did what probably any financially strapped girlie in this situation would do. She said, F it, I'm doing what I want, and started racking up tons of credit card debt. Jewelry for her family, bougie stuffed animals, a $500 crab lunch. She even raided a candy store and took her brothers to an arcade. And on Reddit, people only had one thing to say about it. Go bigger! So she did. She opened up even more credit cards and even started using them for charitable donations. She's donated more than $1,000 worth of groceries to a local food bank and has plans to do far more charitable giving before she goes too. As she put it, this debt will die with me. And who can blame her? I mean, can you imagine being 22 and being saddled with this dark a reality? A combination of nihilism and gusto is kind of the only reasonable response. If you're an American, you're probably thinking, yeah, but what about her family who's going to have to pay off all this debt? Well, she's not in the US, she's in the
Terminal cancer at 22. Racks up credit card debt for final joys. Debt dies with her legally. I'm not advocating fraud, but this shows how the system extracts until you literally die. She just flipped it. Important, in the US, debt doesn't transfer to family unless they co-signed. Your estate pays what it can. Rest gets discharged. Don't let collectors intimidate survivors into paying debts they don't legally owe. When dying young means gaming credit systems just to enjoy final weeks, maybe the system itself is broken.
This is the first time we've seen this happen in Florida's housing market in 15 years, signaling that if you're a Florida resident or home buyer, you better pay attention to where the market is heading over the next 12 months. Because home values in Florida are already down 4.7%. This is the biggest one-year drop since 2011 in the middle of the last housing crash, where prices dropped 50%. Now, of course, Florida's housing market is different this time around than in the late 2000s. There's fewer bad mortgages, there's fewer foreclosures, and homeowners have more equity. However, the warning signs building in Florida's housing market right now are concerning, with home buyer demand across the state plummeting to the lowest level in the last 12 years. Begging the question, just how much more are home values going to decline in this housing cycle in Florida, and when should you buy to get a good deal? Well, you can see values are going down all across the state already. Markets like Naples, Cape Coral, Punta Gorda, Sarasota, Tampa, and now even values are going down in Orlando and Miami, according to Zillow's Home Value Index. But there's huge variation by city and neighborhood, everyone. Take a look at this. In southern Florida, there's some neighborhoods where ReVenture is forecasting prices to still go up over the next year, while there's other neighborhoods where we're forecasting a double-digit decline. Unlock the forecast for your market at www.reventure.app under Premium Plan.
Florida down 4.7% year over year. First drop since 2011, and people act shocked. Florida's been a speculative bubble. COVID buyers purchasing sight unseen, insurance costs exploding, climate risks mounting. This was inevitable. For sellers, move now before it deepens. For buyers, Florida isn't one market. Naples, Tampa, Orlando react differently. Research neighborhood-level data, and pay attention. Florida often leads national trends. If it's dropping, other markets follow. Watch your local inventory. Days on market, price cuts. Those signal what's coming.
You look at New York, for example. Without going into too much detail, there's all these policies that are in place to help create more affordable housing. But unfortunately, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of supply and demand. There's a state program, for example, that says, okay, if you build a building that's over a certain number of units, then you have to change like these wage structures and you need to have this percentage affordable and all that. And that cap is about 100 units, so 100 apartments.
Okay.
So if you look at all of the 100% of the applications under the new program to build these buildings in New York, 100% of them are 99 units or below. Looking at our friend Javier Milei, the president of Argentina,
yes,
he's removed all rent regulation from Argentina and Buenos Aires. In a year and a half, supply has increased and rents are down 30%.
That's incredible.
In a year and a half, 2 years. There is 40 to 50,000 by our estimates vacant apartments in Manhattan that, because of rent regulation, are not being put onto the market.
That's insane.
So you could have, by just changing policy, you could increase a huge number of units, and you could also bring all these units back online, and you could cut the price of housing in New York.
And we don't have to resort to socialism.
They're only able to freeze rents on the regulated units, which means the free market rents can float. And also, if you make it impossible under that regime to build more apartments, guess what happens to the price of free market rents?
They keep going up.
They're going to skyrocket.
Many cities in America are offering money for Canadians to move there. The city of Tulsa is actually offering 13 grand for Canadians to move there. Beside the 13 grand, they also have really cheap housing. You can get this 2 beds, 2 bath for under $300K. A little old but super spacious kitchen, huge bathroom, even bigger backyard, over 8,000 square foot in lot. Sorry to bring it to you, I try to find something in the similar price range in Vancouver. It does not exist. I don't know, would you move to Tulsa?
This is the most unaffordable housing market that America has ever seen. Let's use this home as an example, which is the American dream for a lot of people like me and my fiance. We do pretty well for ourselves, we earn in the 6 figures, and we've always wanted this. But then this happened. $553,000 for this house. You may be thinking to yourself, well, that's not so bad. Let me show you. This home that was sold for $553,000, that was listed for $489,000, sold for $337,000 back in 2018. This home in 2025 with a $553,000 sale price, 6% down and a 6.5% rate, gives you a payment of $3,716. Back in 2018 with a $337,000 sale price, 6% down and a 4.5% rate, gives you a payment of $1,800. Which means to afford that home today, you need a household income of $230,000. When in 2018, you needed a household income of $100,000. Meaning that back in 2018, a couple with 2 entry-level jobs could have afforded this house. That's the issue that many people like me and my fiance are having. How is it that we have to earn more than twice as much money to do the same things that people used to be able to do just 5-6 years ago? One of the worst parts is we can't get any honesty around the situation. So if you want honest news around what's going on in the housing market, make sure you check out my newsletter in my link in bio called Pissed Off Buyer. And let me know in the comments what's happening with the housing market in your city. Like, follow, and comment for more.
Same house. 2018 $337K. Needs $100K income. 2025 $553K. Needs $230K income. You need to earn 2.3 times more for the identical house 7 years later. This is why work harder is a joke now. Entry-level jobs that used to lead to homeownership now lead to permanent renting. The ladder got pulled up. Real talk, without generational wealth or massive income, redefine what ownership means. Smaller cities, older homes, longer commutes, or just waiting years. Focus on high-income skills, software, healthcare, skilled trades. You need earnings that outpace housing inflation or you're cooked. Some people in major metros won't own homes. That's not personal failure. That's structural reality.
Finally, some good news for home buyers. After a long shortage of homes for sale, inventories across the U.S. are up 30% from where they were a year ago, according to an April 2025 estimate by Realtor.com. Economists thought this would lead to a jump in sales, but the housing market still seems to be in a slump. Why?
One big reason is high interest rates, which has everyone stuck in a holding pattern. Buyers don't want to commit to an expensive loan right before mortgage rates fall, and sellers are reluctant to substantially lower prices if the market is about to pick up.
Add to that the possibility of a recession later this year, and no one wants to make any big financial decisions until they know how things will play out. It's an example of how unpredictability can be a drag on economic growth.
Life in America feels worse for millions of people in 2025 for several different reasons. First of all, daily life just feels exhausting. People are working endlessly to make ends meet, and they're not even making ends meet. Households have to have 2 incomes to be able to pay the bills. And it's not enough if you're just even making $20 an hour anymore. People that are making 6 figures are saying that they're having a hard time. Now, where you live does have a lot to do with that. If you are in the city, if you are more rural in the country, are you in a very expensive state? Are you in a cheaper state? We live in a cheaper state because of this reason. We decided to leave Texas in an area that did have a pretty affordable cost of living, but we decided to move to Oklahoma because it's even cheaper to live here because of this reason. And you have to make changes like that right now. People are needing to vote with their feet. Originally, I'm from California, and we left there years ago because of what is happening with the cost of living, amongst a lot of other things that's going on there in the state.
Hey fam, what's good? I thought I'd share this. I just got off a Zoom call with a couple of colleagues, and my girlfriends live in different states. They're homeowners. So I had one girlfriend that just bought a home, two girlfriends of mine that have been homeowners. Their mortgage has gone up, so they're like, they just don't understand the housing crisis in America. So let me explain this in layman terms. From 1992 to 2008, there was an influx of developers building houses everywhere. So we had more supply than demand, okay? When the crash happened in 2008, developers stopped building. Some were building, but not as much, but basically stopped. We were going through an economic crisis. When it slowly started to improve and the interest rates came down, the problem was we didn't have enough supply for the demand. So there was more people looking for housing, but we didn't have the housing. And that's why housing has skyrocketed to the roof, right? That's where we're at in America. People don't understand why housing is expensive. That's why.
Finally, someone explains it clearly. Builders overbuilt 1992 to 2008, crashed, stopped building. Population kept growing, supply stayed flat, prices exploded. It's not complicated. We have more people than housing units. Everything else, Airbnb, investors, whatever, those are factors, but the core is supply shortage. Solution nobody wants, build massively. Upzone cities, streamline permits, cut red tape, but NIMBYs block everything with neighborhood character excuses. Translation: I got mine. Look at Argentina. Removed rent control. Supply increased. Rents dropped 30% in 18 months. Rent control sounds good, but reduces supply, making everything worse. Vote for pro-housing candidates. Support zoning reform, or accept that prices never sustainably drop. So here we are, a broken housing market where half the country can't buy and the other half's terrified of corrections. People living in vans. Six-figure earners priced out. Politicians pretending it's fine. It's not fine, and it won't fix itself. Buyers, be patient. Research deeply. Don't panic buy. Homeowners, diversify wealth. Prepare for drops. Everyone, demand better policy. This isn't sustainable. Something breaks eventually. Prices or society. What's your city like? Priced out? Barely holding on? Drop a comment. If this hit home, like and share it with someone who thinks just save more still works. Subscribe. This story's just starting. See you next time.